The fourth section of the contract is the recurring invoice schedule. This is to be used if you need to generate recurring service invoices when the contract becomes live. You have the following options for recurring invoices: not required, fixed price, or charge per equipment. Not required means that you will produce no invoices for the contract. This could be used for your own branch contract, or if you intend to invoice for each job after it has been completed. Fixed price allows you to set a fixed value for the whole contract and all the equipment on it. This is a fixed price per invoice, which means the invoice value is always consistent, even if you add or remove equipment from the contract. Charge per equipment allows you to set invoice values for each item of equipment on the contract, and invoice values are entered against each equipment record, meaning invoice values can fluctuate if equipment on the contract change. We'll take a look at the fixed priced option first. To begin, set whether you will invoice in arrears or advance. The invoice account number defaults to the customer set on the contract, but you can overwrite this. This allows you to invoice a third party for the work, for instance if you are invoicing a finance company. You then have the first invoice date, so that's the date that the first invoice should be available. And you've got site ID and invoice to site ID, which should only be used if you want to address the invoices to a site. If you use invoice to site ID, the revenue for the invoices will still be posted to the customer account, whether you use the invoice to site ID or the invoice account is changed. As the option we chose was fixed price, we must now enter a value for the fixed priced invoices. So this should be the total price for each invoice regardless of the equipment items on it. Enter the first invoice value and the next invoice value. Each invoice will be charged at these prices. Now set the invoice frequency from the drop-down options and enter the customer purchase order number in the order reference field. If the payment terms are already populated, this is set as the default on the customer's account, but you can amend it here if required. The order reference expiry date can give you a notification in the system. Notifications can be set in system settings and notification management. This could be used to tell you when the customer's purchase order expires, or you could use it to set a date to remind you to renegotiate contract terms. The uplift field allows you to set a percentage value to uplift the contract by when it is renewed. So now we can look at the charge per equipment option. So you must still set the same details as we did earlier. Set the first invoice date, then change the invoice account number if needed, add the order reference, and then change the invoice frequency and payment terms if needed, and add an order reference expiry date. When using the charge by equipment option, you now need to populate the invoice price for each piece of equipment in the equipment and services section. So scroll up if needed to see the invoice prices per equipment, then enter a value for each item of equipment and press the tick to confirm each time. So the values that we entered here will then be used to calculate the total invoice value for each period in the invoice section. So once you're ready with these details, you can click to raise the contract. You will then be asked to confirm in the next window. You can review your selections here, and if you're happy, click confirm and the contract will be raised. The contract will be produced as either a PDF copy or as an automated email to your customer, dependent on the settings for that customer in the communications center.